Alright, folks, so let's try to understand the nuances and steps involved in order to prepare the data which is fed to LLM in order to train it. So, the steps start with the very intuitive and thought provoking question that how do we teach an LLM to understand language? Because when it comes to language, languages are really complex. It has a grammar, guidelines, dialects, multiple meanings of the same word, and cultural context. We cannot simply write down, millions of rules by hand to program it. So what we do? We will really require couple of examples, or you can say labeled examples, so that we can feed those example to LLM, and from those example LLM will learn. So if you remember from our previous video, we have taken one simple linear regression example where we have this data set, our studied and marks. Now this type of data is called as supervised labeled data. Why? Because we have the input output pairs directly available with us. So we have input output available, and this type of data we call it as a supervised label data, and similar data we will require for LLM also, so that we will be able to train the LLM. Now by far you know that LLMs are doing what? They are just a probability engine which take input as a word and try to predict the next best possible word for us. So what kind of data we require in order to train the LLM? Of course, a word input and a word output. So that kind of input output pair we need to create it. So the question is, from where we will get this input output pair? Of course, we have the internet as our biggest textbook. So whenever researchers try to train this kind of LLMs, they go to the internet and from there they scrape the data, right? For example, if we talk about GPT-3, so it is being trained on 3 trillion words. So researchers had gone to the internet, they have written the script to crawl all the website and get the data. Similarly, in order to prepare input output pairs, in order to train any LLM, we need to follow these 4 steps. And the first step is basically crawl the web and get the dirty data. In the second step, we perform cleaning and filtering. So basically removal of HTML tags, advertisement, duplicate files, or any low quality gibberish text we remove inside this particular step, so that we will be able to get the clean sentences from the raw data. Now once we will have the clean sentences available with us, in the step 3 we do the splitting of those sentences into words, and this step is also called as tokenization. We will talk a lot more about the tokenization in the further videos, but right now you can just consider that okay, we will get the sentences and those sentences are being splitted into the words. Now who does this? So there is a one library called as tick token. You see OpenAI has released this library, and with the help of this tick token we will be able to split our sentences into words. We don't have to really worry about how this tick token library works under the hood. As an applied AI engineer, that's not our concern. But yes, with the help of tick token library we can do splitting of the sentences into words, and these words are also known as tokens. We will again gonna talk about tokens into later section, but right now you can consider words are similar to tokens, and once we get the sentences we have to basically split them down into the words. And the final and fourth step is basically to create the auto label data set, so that we will have the input word and output word, and those things can be fed into the LLM in order to start the training. Now again the question arises, from where we will be able to get the auto label data? Now we have the words till step 3, but still those are not present in the form of input word and output word. So how do we do that? Once again, there is one algorithm comes into the picture that is called as CLM algorithm, which stands for causal language modeling, and with the help of this we try to create input output pairs for us. Now it is based on the very simple idea. If you remember from our school, what we do actually in the fill in the blank example. So for example, if this is our sentence, the capital of France is, and this is a blank thing, we need to fill it, right? So for this, of course, the answer is going to be Paris. On a very same idea, this causal language modeling works, and it has several steps. Now let's see what are the different steps in order to prepare input output pair with the help of CLM algorithm. So first of all, we start with the raw sentence from the internet. Now let's say this is the sentence example. We have example like the cat sat on the mat. Once we have the sentence, we try to tokenize it, basically break down the sentences into words. So we have the cat sat on the mat, and but this time it is tokenized. Basically we are having the different words from the sentences. Now once we have the different words from the sentences, with the help of CLM algorithm, what we try to do, we try to create a sliding window. For example, you see the window starts from the very first two words, which is the and cat. Now this will become my first input output pair. So the is my first input and cat is my first output training data. If I click on next pair, you see now with the sliding window approach, I have the cat as my second input and sat is the second output training example for me. If I click on next pair, you see now the cat sat is my input and on is the output, and this is my third training sample. Similarly, if I click on next pair, you see now the cat set on is my fourth input and the is my fourth output. So this will become my fourth input output pair. Similarly, you can do for the entire sentences, and this is only for the one sentences. So from one sentence itself, we are able to get the 5 training input output pair. Now consider millions of sentences or billions of sentences. So how many input output pair we will be able to create from the whole internet, right? Now once we have this input output pair available with us, then we take this entire input output pair and we feed this inside the LLM, and over there back propagation happens. Remember, we have learned about back propagation in our previous session, and over there like LLM first try to learn from this training sample, and then they try to predict something. Okay, so for example, once we feed this entire data, so LLM will try to understand the verb connection, subject connection, general grammar connection, and basically they try to predict something. For example, for the above sentence, the cat sat on the, let's suppose this is the sentence and the output should come like mat, and let's suppose in the first iteration LLM has understood the verb connection, subject connection and grammar connection, and they are predicting, let's suppose, dog as their final output. Now of course this is a wrong output. Now once they do the prediction, they will try to find it out the loss or error, if you remember from our previous video, and then they try to back propagate it with the help of propagation algorithm. So basically they try to adjust their weights and parameters. So suppose these are our weights and parameters. So if you see, if you gonna adjust it, after a lot of iteration they will start predicting the correct word, and you see after a lot of iteration we have this mat as 61% probability out of all of these words, and now you can say this is a good guess. So this is how basically LLM take the data and then try to predict it. Now you see, for us generating the input output token pair will look something like this. So we will have one algorithm. When we click on that generate training pairs, so in one go we will be able to see this kind of training pairs for us, as simple as it is. Okay, so we will have the cat, the sat. Again, this is the third input pair output, fourth input pair output, fifth input pair, and then output. So for us we really don't have to go and understand how CLM works. For us it is just going to look like, okay, we have these are the different input output pairs. We take it, we feed to the LLM learns the pattern inside this language, try to predict the next word, and then they will try to basically find it out the loss error, and then they do the back propagation, they try to minimize the loss, and then finally they will be able to predict the right word after a lot of iterations. And that is how we create the training input output pair, and basically LLM learns different patterns from that data. Now let's also talk about the inferencing part of the LLM, and let's take a overview of how LLM inferencing works. So basically the LLM try to predict one word at a time, and it is in like infinite loop, right? So you see, for example, if this is our first input, AI model take this input, try to predict the next word, which is then this word is appended back to the second phase. So in the second iteration we will have this, and output is, once again AI model look into this and try to predict a next word. Again we'll take this word, it will go as an input, this is n, then again AI will try to predict the next word, and again this will go into the input of the entire sequence, again AI will try to predict the next word. So this will keep happening in the loop. And that's why, whenever you go to ChatGPT and ask something, hi there, like for example, let's say if I ask this, can you write a poem on my name, you will see the GPT will give you answer token by token or word by word, and that is very much visible inside this particular UI. For example, if I hit enter, you see it is gonna, you see, giving me the output one by one. So basically you see it is predicting one word at a time only, but that prediction is now once again go back to the LLM, and then it try to predict the next word. What, that is what I was explaining over here, right? And due to this nature of LLM, we also call LLM as a autoregressive models, because you see it is using the previous token as the context in order to predict the new next word, and this nature is called as autoregressive nature of the LLMs. Now for example, you can see this over here as well. For example, this is the input, the sky is, and you see if I click on this, you see it is predicting this word, the sky is clear, was also one, it, the, you, but, right? So it is just predicting one word at a time. Let me run it once again. You see, one word at a time, but that prediction goes once again back to the input to the LM in order to predict the next new word, right? And that is how the prediction loop works, right? So essentially if we basically summarize this entire video, so we you can summarize in this particular step. You can say we take the raw sentences from the internet, we clean those sentences so that we will have like without gibberish words, we will have a very clean sentences. Then we try to tokenize those sentences so that we will get the words, and after that a CLM algorithm will come into the picture, which will create the input target pair for us or input output pair for us, and those pairs will take it and feed it to the LLM. Then LLM try to learn the pattern from that data, and whatever error it happen, it try to measure that error, and then with the help of back propagation algorithm, it try to adjust its weights and parameters, and then finally it come up with the some fixed parameters, and then whenever we do the prediction, it try to predict one word at a time, but that word, predicted word, will go into the input of the LLM so that we will be able to predict the next new word for us. So that is what in a nutshell how we prepare the data and the way LLM gives us the output.